The stranger in the storm. The rain didn't just fall. It attacked the streets like it had a grudge. Potholes filled with muddy water, thunder cracked loud enough to shake windows, and wind pushed through the narrow alleys like a fist. Most people were inside, safe, warm, dry, but not Jamal. He was 10 years old, drenched to the bone, and dragging a rusted bicycle with one good wheel and a flat tire. His hands were red from the cold. His hoodie was 2 sizes too small. His shoes had holes in them. But he kept going, step after miserable step. He didn't have a choice. He had to get home before dark. Home, if you could call it that. A one-room apartment on the 3rd floor of a building with broken heaters and cockroaches that didn't run from the light anymore. His mom was probably passed out on the couch by now, too tired from her 3rd shift and too sad to speak. The back tire made a horrible screech as it scraped along the pavement. Something in the frame had bent. The pedals spun freely, not catching. Anything. Come on, he whispered to it, just a little more. He was only 3 blocks from home when it happened. He slipped. His shoe caught on a pothole, and he fell hard, scraping his elbow against the sidewalk. He winced, tried not to cry, tried not to scream. The pain burned, but what hurt more was the sound of laughter across the street. 3 boys, older, watching from under the shelter of a liquor store awning. "Hey, where's your training wheels, baby? Nice ride, loser. Need me to call your mummy?" Jamal ignored them. He didn't even look up. He pulled himself to his feet and grabbed the bike. Blood ran down his arm, mixing with the rain. He turned down a side street, narrower, darker. One street lamp flickered above. That's when he heard it. "Hey, kid, you all right?" He froze. The voice was deep, calm, not mocking. He turned slowly. A tall man stood in the doorway of a rundown auto repair shop. Black skin, shaved head, muscular arms streaked with oil. His shirt was soaked too, but he didn't seem to care. The man stepped out under the awning and nodded at the broken bike. "Looks like that thing's seen better days." Jamal didn't answer. His mother's voice echoed in his head. "Don't talk to strangers, especially men." But the man didn't move. Closer. He just stood there, arms crossed. "You dragging that thing all the way home?" A nod. "You live around here?" Another nod. The man tilted his head. "That's your blood?" Jamal looked down at his elbow, now crusted with a mix of dirt and blood. Still, he said nothing. Finally, the man took a slow breath. "Name's Eli. I'm a mechanic. I fix bikes, fix cars too. This here," he pointed to the faded sign above the shop. "Eli's Auto and Bike." The sign was barely readable, paint peeling. Neon half dead. Jamal glanced at the man, then at the shop, then down at his bike. He didn't trust him, but he was too tired, too cold, and too hurt to keep walking. "Can you fix it?" he asked quietly. Eli's eyes softened. "Let's take a look." The shop was warmer than it looked. There was a space heater near the back and a dusty old couch that smelled like rubber. Eli wheeled the bike in and flipped it upside down. Chains off, rims bent. "You've been riding it like this?" Jamal nodded. "Since last week." Eli let out a low whistle. "You're tougher than you look." He pulled a rag from a workbench, wiped his hands, and grabbed a wrench. Jamal sat on the edge of the couch, dripping water onto the floor. Eli worked fast, but carefully. He didn't speak much, just mumbled things like, "Gonna need to align this, and lucky I got a spare gear." 30 minutes passed. Then an hour. "You got any cash, kid?" Eli finally asked. Jamal's stomach dropped. He reached into his jeans, pulled out a folded $5 bill and 2 quarters. He held them out. Eli stared at the money, then he smiled. A real, tired, sad kind of smile. "Keep it." Jamal blinked. "But I didn't ask to get paid. I asked if you had any big difference." The boy sat silently, stunned. No one had ever given him anything without expecting something in return. Ever. Eli wrapped the chain, tightened the bolts, and handed the bike back. "There. Not perfect, but it'll ride smooth for a while." Jamal stood, slowly, awkwardly. "Thank you." Eli reached into a lunch bag and pulled out a sandwich, wrapped in foil. He tossed it to Jamal. "Take it. You look like you haven't eaten today." He was right. Jamal hadn't eaten since a stale muffin from school that morning. He hesitated, then took the sandwich. It was turkey and cheese, cold. But it tasted like heaven. Eli watched him eat, said nothing. When the sandwich was gone, Jamal picked up his bike. "I gotta go." "You know where I am," Eli said. "If it breaks again." Jamal nodded. "I'm Jamal." Eli smiled. "Nice to meet you, Jamal." And with that, the boy pedaled away into the rain. He didn't look back, but he never forgot. 17 years later, the sound of tires crunching gravel made Eli glance up from the engine he was working on. A sleek black SUV had just pulled into his lot, spotless, expensive, and completely out of place in this part of town. The door opened. A man in a black suit stepped out. Then another. Then a third. All three looked serious. But the third man, something about him made Eli's chest tighten. He was tall, built, handsome, a clean-cut beard. And those eyes. "Mr. Eli Thompson?" the man asked. Eli wiped his hands on a rag. "Yeah. Who's asking?" The man smiled, a slow, warm smile. "You fixed my bike 17 years ago. I was 10. In the rain. You gave me a sandwich and didn't take a dime." Eli stared, then blinked. "Jamal." The man stepped forward and nodded. "That's me." Eli's mouth opened, but no words came out. Jamal reached into his coat and pulled out an envelope, thick, sealed. He handed it to Eli. "This is for you, and it's only the beginning." Eli frowned. "What is this?" Jamal looked around. The other two men, bodyguards maybe, kept their distance. "Your entire life is about to change, but before anything else, there's something you need to know." He paused, then said very quietly, "You saved me. That day. In more ways than you know. And I've spent every year since then preparing to return the favor." The envelope and the offerelli stared at the thick envelope in his hands. It was heavy, not just in weight, but in meaning. The kind of weight that pressed on your chest. Before you even opened it, across from him stood Jamal, no longer the scrawny, soaked kid with blood on his elbow. He was a man now. Sharp suit, clear voice, calm eyes. But behind all of that, Eli could still see something familiar. Gratitude, pain, a hunger to set something right. Eli looked down at the envelope again. "What's in this?" Jamal didn't answer directly. Instead, he said, "I built a company. It started with nothing, just an idea. I worked nights, learned everything I could, and hustled until someone listened. Now it's worth over 80 million. Eli let out a low whistle. "And here I thought I was doing okay when I paid my electricity bill on time last month." Jamal smiled, but it faded quickly. He gestured to the envelope. "Open it." Eli peeled back the seal. Inside were several sheets of paper and a check. He held the check up to the light like it was a fake. His hands trembled. This. It says $50,000. Jamal nodded. "That's just the beginning." Eli blinked. "This a joke? Some kind of prank?" Jamal shook his head. "You helped me when no one else did. You didn't ask questions. You didn't ask for money. You just helped, and I never forgot that." Eli stared at him. "You're telling me," he said slowly, "you came back here after all these years just to hand me a check?" Jamal exhaled. "Not just that. I want to rebuild your shop. New sign, new equipment, everything. I want to franchise it. Take your name and story to every corner of the city. You helped one boy. Now I want to help 1,000. Eli opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. "Why?" he finally asked. "Why go through all this trouble?" Jamal's eyes darkened just for a second. A shadow passed across his face. "Because I owe you more than money," he said. "That day when you fixed my bike, It wasn't just about the bike. You saved me from going down a very dark road." Eli tilted his head. Jamal looked around, then nodded at the bodyguards. "Give us a minute." They nodded and stepped away. Jamal turned back to Eli and said very quietly, "The night after I left your shop, I was planning to steal food from a corner store. I had it all figured out. I was hungry. My mum hadn't been home in 2 days, and I thought no one cared. I was ready to get arrested and didn't matter. But then I remembered you, the sandwich, the way you treated me like a human being." Eli's throat tightened. "I didn't rob that store. Instead, I went home. I slept. And the next day, I went back to school. One choice. One man. That changed everything." Eli was quiet for a long moment. Then he looked down at the check again. "I don't know what to say." "Say yes," Jamal replied softly. "Say you'll let me help now." They walked through the old garage together. Paint was peeling. The lights flickered. The smell of oil and burnt rubber hung in the air. Eli pointed to a cracked wall. "I patched that up with duct tape 3 times last year." Jamal made notes on his phone. They stepped into the back office, a cluttered space with paperwork stacked high and an ancient fan in the corner. "I never made much money," Eli said, "but I made it through. Barely." "You shouldn't have to barely anything," Jamal said. "You've got skill, heart. People like you should be known." Eli looked at him, still overwhelmed. "You're serious about all this?" "I've already hired a design team," Jamal said. "They'll be here next week. You just need to say yes." Eli leaned back against the wall and let out a long breath. "This is insane." "In a good way." Eli laughed. "In the best possible way." But even as he laughed, something in Jamal's expression shifted. His smile disappeared. He glanced at his watch. "I have one more thing to ask," he said. Eli raised a brow. "What's that?" "I want to hire you for something unusual. A private job." Eli folded his arms. "You mean like fixing a car?" Jamal shook his head slowly. "No, something personal, something dangerous." Eli's face grew serious. "I'm listening." They sat down on the old couch, and Jamal pulled out a small black folder. He opened it, revealing a photo. A man in his late 40s, sharp jawline, cold eyes, wearing a suit. "This is David Rushmore," Jamal said. "He's a businessman, owns half the liquor stores and payday loan shops in the East Side." Eli narrowed his eyes. "I know the name. He's got a reputation." Jamal nodded. "He's the reason my mother died." Eli sat up straighter. "What happened?" Jamal's voice dropped. She was working 3 jobs, cleaning houses, late-night janitorial shifts, whatever she could find. One night, she took out a payday loan to cover our rent. It was a trap. They charged her 400% interest. She couldn't keep up. We got evicted. Eli's jaw clenched. She collapsed from exhaustion 2 weeks later, in a shelter. She never woke up. Jamal's hands tightened into fists. "I was 15. I promised myself I'd never forget the name behind that loan office. Rushmore Financial. I dug into everything. His businesses, his partners. I found out he's been using fake charities to launder money, bribing city officials, destroying families." Eli looked grim. "What do you want from me?" Jamal looked him in the eyes. "I want you to be my partner. Not in revenge, in justice." Eli raised an eyebrow. "I'm no private investigator. You're smart, you're streetwise, and most of all, you don't scare easy. I need someone I can trust, someone who doesn't answer to money." Eli scratched his head. "What exactly would I be doing? Helping me gather proof, visiting places I can't, asking questions without drawing suspicion. You'd be my eyes and ears." Eli leaned back, quiet for a moment. Then he said, "You could have hired anyone for this." "I don't trust anyone," Jamal said, "except you." That landed hard. Eli looked around at his shabby office, his flickering light, his faded hopes. Then he looked at Jamal, a boy he once fed, a man now offering a mission. He smiled. "All right, I'm in." Later that night, Eli sat at his kitchen table, the check still in front of him. He hadn't cashed it yet. His dog, Max, snored softly in the corner. The clock ticked past midnight. Eli picked up the photo of Rushmore again. Something about the man's eyes chilled him. Cold. Empty. Like he didn't believe the rules applied to him. Eli wasn't a hero. He'd never been a cop. Never wore a cape. But, for some reason, the idea of going after a man like that made him feel alive, like he had purpose again. He turned off the lamp and slept like a man ready for war. What the security camera saw, Ellie didn't sleep long that night. He was up before sunrise, pacing the length of his tiny kitchen, sipping black coffee. A strange energy stirred in him, part adrenaline, part fear, and a flicker of something he hadn't felt in years. Purpose. That afternoon, he met Jamal at a private co-working space downtown. The sleek, modern building was a far cry from the rusty old garage Eli called home. Polished floors, glass walls, silence that felt expensive. Jamal was already waiting in a corner office with a laptop open and blueprints spread across the table. "I did some digging last night," he said. "And I think we have a way in." Eli raised an eyebrow. "A way into what?" Jamal tapped the screen. It showed the outside of a building, a plain, unmarked warehouse on the east side. Rushmore's charity office, only it's not listed with any actual non-profit records. No press, no events, just shell donations that circle back to his companies. Eli leaned in. "So what's inside?" Jamal's voice dropped. "That's what we're going to find out." He pointed at a small figure in the corner of the image, a man entering the back door at 3:17 a.m. That guy's name is Kevin Trask, former accountant turned enforcer. He disappeared from public records 5 years ago, but he shows up here once a week, always after midnight. Eli frowned. "And you want me to go poke around that place?" "Not break in," Jamal said. "Just scout. Watch from the street. Get a feel for how many people go in and out. We'll use that to plan our next move." Eli nodded slowly. "All right, I can do that." Jamal pulled out a black duffel bag. Inside is a burner phone, binoculars, and a camera. "Use the phone only. Do text me. If you see anything strange, take pictures. Do not approach anyone." Eli took the bag. "You're trusting me with a lot." Jamal looked him square in the eyes. "Because you saved me once without knowing my name. I haven't forgotten." That night, Eli parked 3 blocks from the warehouse. It was quiet, too quiet. The area smelled like engine grease and wet cement. A chain-link fence surrounded the building, but the back alley had a clear view of the rear entrance. Eli set up in his truck, camera resting on the dashboard. 17 p.m. Nothing. 03 a.m. Still quiet. He cracked his window and lit a cigarette, nerves tingling. Then, just past 1 a.m., a black SUV turned the corner. No headlights. It rolled to a stop near the back gate, and 3 figures got out. Eli zoomed in. Kevin Trask was one of them. Thick shoulders, shaved head, eyes that never blinked. The other 2 were younger, skittish. One carried a briefcase. Trask opened the gate with a keycard. They vanished inside. Eli quickly snapped a series of photos, focusing on the license plate. He was about to pack up when something caught his eye. Movement at the far end of the alley. Another person, but this one wasn't walking toward the warehouse. He was watching it. A man in a grey hoodie, crouched behind a dumpster, camera in hand. Eli blinked. Someone else was investigating Rushmore. He watched the stranger for several minutes. The guy was fast, moving from shadow to shadow, snapping pictures, then ducking behind parked cars. At 1:41 a.m., the SUV returned. The 3 men got in and drove off. The hooded man didn't follow. He waited, then pulled out a phone and made a call. Eli strained to listen, but heard only whispers and static. After a few minutes, the man walked away. Eli sat frozen. He wasn't the only one hunting the truth. The next day, Eli met Jamal at a diner just outside the city. He slid the camera across the table. Got what you wanted, but there's something else. He told Jamal everything. The SUV, the men, the guy in the hoodie. Jamal leaned in. You got a good look at his face? No, he stayed in the shadows, but he moved like he'd done this before. Jamal looked troubled. That complicates things. You think Rushmore hired someone to watch his own operation? Doubt it, Jamal said. He's too arrogant. If someone else is watching him, it means he has other enemies. Eli stirred his coffee. That a good thing or a bad thing? Jamal answered without hesitation. Both. Later that afternoon, Jamal handed Eli a thin manila folder. Inside were medical records. One page in particular made Eli's stomach turn. It was a death certificate. Name, Lana Brooks. Age, 38. Cause, cardiac arrest due to overdose. Eli's hands trembled. Who is she? Jamal stared out the window. His jaw clenched. My aunt. She was trying to get clean. She went to one of Rushmore's rehab centers, the ones he owns through a fake church. Turns out they didn't help anyone. They kept patients, addicted to keep the funding rolling in. Eli looked at the file again. She died 3 months ago? Yes, and I didn't even know she was in that place until it was too late. Jamal turned back, eyes burning. He's killing people, slowly, quietly, legally, but it's still murder. Eli leaned back, stunned. You weren't kidding when you said this was personal. No, Jamal said quietly. I wasn't. That evening, Eli went back to the warehouse. This time, he didn't stay in the truck. He hid behind the same dumpster where the hooded man had been. Just to feel the angles, the line of sight, the shadows. He crouched low and adjusted the focus on his camera. A soft click echoed from behind. Eli froze. Another click. Footsteps. He spun around and came face to face with the man in the hoodie. Who the hell are you? The stranger snapped, his voice tense. I could ask you the same, Eli said. The man pulled back his hood, late 30s, sharp features, cold stare. You working for Rushmore? He asked. Eli scoffed. Do I look like I work for him? The man didn't smile. Then why are you here? I'm investigating him, Eli said honestly. Same as you. A long pause. Then the man lowered his voice. You don't know what you're stepping into, old man. This isn't just dirty loans and ghost charities. This is human trafficking, opioid rings, politicians on payroll. Eli stiffened. You have proof? The man didn't answer, just turned and started walking away. Eli followed. Wait! Who are you? The stranger glanced back, then muttered one word before vanishing into the dark. Journalist. Back in the truck, Eli dialed Jamal's burner number. Jamal answered on the second ring. You were right, Eli said. There's something bigger going on. He told Jamal about the journalist, the trafficking, the corruption. Jamal was silent. Then he said, We're not just pulling at threads anymore, we're unraveling the whole rug. Eli looked at the warehouse in his rearview mirror. A chill crept down his spine. What now? He asked. Jamal replied, Now we bring everything we have to light before someone silences us. That night, as Eli walked his dog past his old garage, he noticed something strange. His front gate was open. He never left it open. He approached slowly, senses on high alert. A shadow moved behind the window. Eli froze. Then a man stepped out. Of the shop. Tall, leather gloves, face half covered by a scarf. They locked eyes. The man didn't say a word, just dropped something on the ground and walked off into the night. Eli approached the object. It was a small, black envelope. Inside was a single photo of him and Jamal. Sitting at the diner that morning, a red X had been drawn over Eli's face. The Trapelli didn't sleep that night. He sat at his kitchen table staring at the black envelope. The photo inside of him and Jamal at the diner lay on the counter like a threat, a red X slashed across his face. Someone was watching. Someone wanted him to back off. He thought about calling Jamal, but it was 3 a.m. What would he say? Someone knows we're digging and they're warning us? Jamal already knew the risks. So did Eli, but now it was personal. The next morning, Eli didn't open the garage. He stayed home, windows locked, curtains drawn, just thinking. By noon, a message appeared on the burner phone from Jamal. We need to talk. Meet me where we first talked about this. Eli grabbed his coat and drove to the alley behind the downtown co-working space. Jamal was waiting, arms crossed, looking like he hadn't slept either. Eli handed him the envelope. They were in my garage. Jamal examined the photo, his face tightening. They're not warning you, Eli, he said. They're warning both of us. Eli nodded. So what's our move? Jamal hesitated. We go faster. He pulled out a tablet and showed Eli a short video clip. It was grainy footage, taken from a hidden camera, showing men unloading boxes, and from a van into the Rushmore warehouse. Eli frowned. What's in the boxes? That's the thing, Jamal said. They're labeled as medical equipment, but I traced the serial numbers. They belong to a rehab facility that burned down 2 years ago. These are ghost supplies, which means money laundering, or worse. Jamal took a breath, as if what he was about to say scared even him. I think they're trafficking prescription drugs, maybe even fentanyl. They fake the supplies to get government grants. Meanwhile, people like my aunt go there thinking it's real treatment and end up worse off. Eli felt something twist in his stomach. He had always known there were bad people in the world, but this was evil. Want to expose him, Jamal said, voice low. But we need hard proof. I mean inside the building proof. Eli narrowed his eyes. You want me to break in? Jamal shook his head. Not break. Walk in. He pulled out a plastic ID badge. You'll be delivering auto parts to a maintenance partner inside the warehouse. They're used to deliveries. We hacked the list. You're on it now. Eli studied the badge. His name was printed clearly. A fake company logo stamped in the corner. When? He asked. Tonight, Jamal said. They won't expect anything. But don't get greedy. You go in, look around, and get out. If you see something big, take a picture and walk. I'll be watching your GPS the whole time. Eli held the badge for a long time, then nodded. I'm in. At 10:47 p.m., Eli arrived at the warehouse. He wore a grey uniform, cap low over his eyes. In the back of his truck was a crate full of fake mechanical parts, just enough to make the visit look official. The gate opened automatically as he approached. No guards, no cameras that he could see, just one man waiting by the loading dock, chewing gum and scrolling his phone. You the auto guy? The man asked without looking up. Yup, Eli said, deepening his voice. Dock 3, the man said, waving. Him and Eli drove around and backed into the open dock. His hands were shaking. Inside, the warehouse was even larger than he'd expected. Row after row of shelves, boxes labeled with strange codes, some marked medical, others storage. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. He unloaded the crate quickly, then glanced around. No one was watching, just a hallway ahead with several doors. Eli walked toward them, pretending to read a clipboard. First door, locked. Second door, empty, office. Third door, storage. Half-empty shelves and a row of filing cabinets. Eli stepped in and closed the door behind him. The room was cold, quiet. He opened the first drawer. Invoices, shipping records, fake company names. He took pictures of everything. Then the second drawer, more files. But one envelope caught his eye. It was stamped, private, admin only. He opened it. Inside was a list of donor names, hundreds of them, corporations, politicians, church leaders. Each name had a dollar amount beside it, and most of them had QH written in red ink. Eli snapped photos fast, heart pounding. Then from outside the door, footsteps. He froze. The knob turned. He ducked behind a filing cabinet. A man walked in, tall, bald, tattoos up his neck. Kevin. Trask. He flipped on the light, then paused. Eli held his breath. Trask walked over to the file drawer Eli had opened. He frowned, looked around the room, then reached into his coat, pulled out a handgun. Eli's breath caught. Trask moved slowly through the room, checking behind boxes. He was headed straight for the filing cabinet. Eli didn't move. But just then, a loud crash echoed from the hallway. Trask jerked his head up, swore under his breath, then left the room. Eli waited 30 seconds, then sprinted down the hallway, out the dock, and back into his truck. He peeled out of the lot as fast as he could without drawing attention. Only when he was 5 blocks away did he let out a breath. His phone buzzed. "Jamal, you okay?" Eli replied, "Got it. Almost caught. Someone made a noise. Saved me." "Jamal, wasn't me." Eli stared at the screen. Then who had saved him? Back at home, Eli sent all the pictures to Jamal. Within an hour, Jamal called, his voice shaking. "This is bigger than I thought." He sounded terrified and amazed. "Eli, these donor names? They include 2 judges, a U.S. senator, a pastor who's been on national TV. This isn't just corruption. This is cover-up on a national scale." Eli was silent. Jamal continued, "We need help, real help. I've contacted that journalist you saw. His name's Connor Lane. He's been investigating Rushmore for years." Eli raised an eyebrow. "And why should we trust him?" "Because his sister died at one of Rushmore's fake clinics, and he's the only one crazy enough to publish this story." They arranged to meet Connor the next day at an abandoned train station outside the city. It felt like something out of a spy movie. Eli arrived first, then Jamal, then Connor, in a long coat, carrying 2 laptops and a voice recorder. "I've seen your photos," Connor said, shaking Eli's hand. "They match what I've been gathering for years. You just gave us the missing piece." Eli looked at the man closely. He had tired eyes and a tight jaw. A man who hadn't stopped running in years. "So what now?" Eli asked. Connor didn't. "Hesitate, we publish. But we don't go through normal channels. We'll release everything through international media. BBC, Al Jazeera, ProPublica. If we go local, they'll bury it," Jamal asked. "And what about Rushmore?" Connor smiled grimly. "He'll come after us. He always does." The plan was simple. In 48 hours, Connor would leak the documents, files, and audio clips they'd gathered. Simultaneously, Jamal would launch a website exposing the Rushmore operation. Eli's photos would be at the center. Everything was ready. But just 24 hours before the leak, Jamal disappeared. Eli tried calling him all night. No answer. By morning, his apartment had been ransacked. Laptop gone, phone destroyed. Eli called Connor in a panic. "He's gone." They got to him. Connor's voice was grave. "We move up the leak tonight. They're trying to silence us." Eli felt sick. "What if they come after me next?" "They will," Connor said. "But once this story's out, they'll have nowhere to hide." That night, Connor posted the full report on dozens of independent news sites. The documents went viral within hours. Hashtags exploded across social media. Rushmore Files, Justice for Lana, Expose, the clinic by morning. News anchors around the world were talking about it. Eli watched it all unfold from his garage, phone in hand, nerves frayed. But still, no word from Jamal. At noon, Connor called. "They arrested 3 of Rushmore's aides this morning. The warehouse is being raided now. Your photos, your name, it's everywhere." Eli didn't care about fame. He only cared about one thing. "Where's Jamal?" Connor paused, then said quietly, "I just got a message." He forwarded it to Eli. It was a video. Jamal, tied to a chair, bruised, but alive, and behind him, Rushmore, smiling. The message was clear. This isn't over. Shadows from the past. The video haunted Eli. Jamal was tied to a metal chair, face swollen, blood dripping from a cut on his cheek. The dim light behind him flickered. A hand, Rushmore's, gripped his shoulder like a predator reminding its prey who was in control. Then the screen cut to black. Eli slammed his fist on the workbench in his garage. "We have to get him out," he muttered. Connor Lane was already on speakerphone. "I've sent the video to the FBI, Connor said. "But you know how it is. They'll investigate slowly. Jamal doesn't have time." Eli nodded, teeth clenched. "So we do it ourselves." Connor hesitated. "You're not trained for this, Eli. Rushmore's got real criminals working for him. Mercenaries." "I'm not trained," Eli said, "but I've spent my whole life fixing things nobody thought could be fixed. I'm not leaving Jamal behind." There was silence on the line. Then Connor said, "I know a guy. Used to do private extractions overseas. He owes me a favor." "Good," Eli said, "because we're out of time." That night Eli met Connor and the ex-mercenary, a gruff man named Reese, in a warehouse near the old train yard. Reese laid out a map of the Rushmore facility. "He's not in the warehouse anymore," Reese said. "Too much heat." After the raids, Rushmore moved his operation. "We tracked a van, likely with Jamal inside, to an old textile factory near the docks. No official security listed, but don't let that fool you. He's got men." Eli studied the map. "Can we get in?" Reese nodded. "One way in, roof access. There's a skylight over the central floor. I'll handle the lookout. You drop down, find Jamal, and get out through the west exit. I'll have a car waiting." Eli paused. "I'm going in alone." Connor looked at him. "You sure about this?" Eli didn't hesitate. He risked everything to help people. "I owe him that." Reese smirked. "You got guts, garage man. I like that." They moved out at 2 a.m. The dock area was deserted. Just the distant hum of ships and the lapping of water. The factory stood like a skeleton against the sky, its brick walls cracked, windows broken. Eli and Reese climbed the fire escape silently. At the top, Reese handed Eli a rope and flashlight. "You. Drop in quiet. Find him. 2 floors down, central room. I'll monitor comms and guide you." Eli pulled the ski mask over his face and nodded. Then he slipped through the broken skylight. He landed softly on a metal platform. The air was thick with oil, dust, and rot. Old machines rusted in the corners. Below him light spilled from a room at the far end. Muffled voices echoed. Reese's voice crackled in his earpiece. 2 guards at the door, armed. Wait for them to walk. "You'll have 30 seconds. Eli crept across the platform and down a steel staircase. His heart thumped like a drum. The guards moved. He darted across the floor and slipped through a narrow hallway. Then he saw him, Jamal, tied to a pipe. Eyes half shut but alive. "Jamal," Eli whispered, rushing forward. "It's me, I'm here." Jamal stirred, blinking. "Eli, they're moving us at sunrise." "I'm not letting that happen," Eli said, cutting the zip ties with a utility blade. "Can you walk?" "Barely," Jamal winced, leaning on Eli's shoulder. Suddenly, a sound behind them. Footsteps. Too many. Eli's earpiece came alive. "They're on to you," Reese said. "Abort! East door, now!" Eli pulled Jamal up and ran. Guards shouted. Behind them, flashlights cut through the darkness. They burst through the east exit and into gunfire. Eli ducked, dragging Jamal behind a metal dumpster. Reese's car screeched into view. "Go! Go!" he shouted. They dove in. Bullets cracked the back window. Glass shattered. Reese gunned the engine. They vanished into the night. 3 hours later, Jamal lay on a cot in Connor's safe house, wrapped in bandages, sipping water slowly. He looked at Eli with a crooked smile. "You really came for me." Eli sat beside him, breathing hard. "You're my brother, Jamal. I didn't fix your bike for nothing." They both laughed, weak but real. Connor walked in with a USB drive. "This changes everything," he said, eyes shining. Jamal had this hidden in his shoe. Security footage, audio recordings, emails between Rushmore and half a dozen public officials. Eli looked at Jamal. "You held on to it even while they tortured you?" Jamal's eyes darkened. "They took everything from my family. I wasn't about to let them take this too. Connor, place the drive on the table. We'll upload it. This is the end of Rushmore. But Eli wasn't smiling. There was something in his gut, a worry, a shadow. What if it's not over, he asked. Connor frowned. Eli looked out the window. This kind of evil, it doesn't just give up. By morning, the second wave of media reports exploded. Leaked audio of Rushmore threatening a senator. Footage of warehouse guards moving boxes of opioids. Emails about forged rehab records. Even the most corrupt officials couldn't hide now. Rushmore's name was on every headline in America. Then, the breaking news. Billionaire Raymond Rushmore arrested in private jet hangar. Faces 41 charges. Eli watched the footage from his garage. Rushmore looked different, older, weaker. But his eyes still held that fire. The cold, vengeful fire of a man who didn't believe the world could ever touch him. But this time, the world had, Connor called. He's done, Eli asked. How long until he talks? Connor's voice dropped. He already did. That's when everything changed. 2 days later, Connor arrived at Eli's garage with a manila envelope. He didn't speak for a long time, just handed it over. Eli opened it. Inside were documents, adoption records, old hospital files, and one black and white photo. It was a picture of a woman, young, dark-haired, smiling and holding a baby. Eli froze. I don't understand, he said. Connor sat down. Rushmore gave names. Yours was one of them. Turns out he knew you. A long time ago? Eli shook his head. What are you talking about? Connor explained gently. The woman in the photo, her name was Angela. She had worked at one of Rushmore's clinics 30 years ago. She discovered he was misusing patient funds and threatened to go to the police. A week later, her car exploded. She died instantly, but her baby, her son, wasn't in the car. He had been sent to live with strangers under a false name. That baby was Eli. Eli dropped the envelope. No, he whispered. Connor nodded. Rushmore lied. He made it look like an accident. Your whole childhood, the orphanage, the system, the foster homes, it started with him. Eli stood, trembling. He killed my mother. He buried your life before it even began. The air in the garage was still. For the first time in his life, Eli felt the full weight of everything he'd never known. He looked at the photo again. That smile. He had her eyes. All these years, he'd been fixing broken things, not knowing the biggest break of all had happened when he was too young to remember. Rushmore hadn't just hurt strangers, he'd destroyed his family. That night, Eli visited the orphanage he grew up in. It had been shut down years ago, but the building still stood, paint peeling, windows dusty. He walked through the halls in silence. He remembered the small cot in the corner room, the broken radiator that made the winters brutal, the teachers who came and went, none staying long enough to know who he really was. He sat on the steps outside and stared at the sky. For so long, he thought his life was just random, a poor kid fixing bikes, fighting his way through life. But now he knew it had all started with one man's choice to silence a good woman. Rushmore had stolen so much, but he hadn't won, because Eli had survived. And now, the truth was free. 1 week later, a courtroom in Manhattan was packed with press, victims, and families. Eli stood at the podium to give his statement. Rushmore sat across from him, handcuffed, still wearing that smug expression. But Eli didn't look at him. He looked at the judge. My name is Eli Carter, he began, voice steady. I was born into a lie. My mother tried to protect others, and for that she died. I grew up never knowing who I was or why my life began in pain. He paused. But I know now. And I want to say something. Not to the man who did this, but to everyone listening. He looked around the room. You can't always choose how your story starts, but you can choose how it ends. I fixed bikes as a kid because it was the only way I knew to bring things back to life, and in the end, I helped fix something bigger than I ever imagined. He looked directly at Rushmore now. You didn't win. You lost to the same people you tried to crush, and we're still standing. The courtroom was silent. Then, quiet applause. Later that month, Eli and Jamal opened a non-profit garage in the heart of the city. They called it Angela's Hands. They fixed bikes and cars for free, but they also did more than that. They offered job training, therapy, and hope for kids from broken places. Every wall of the garage was filled with handprints, each one representing a child who'd walked in feeling forgotten, and walked out believing in something again. As Jamal often said, a wheel doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs someone willing to make it roll again. And Eli? He never stopped fixing, because sometimes justice isn't loud. Sometimes it looks like a kid walking home with a bike that finally works, and a heart that finally believes someone cares. The lesson. He left behind 1 year later. The Angela's Hands garage buzzed with life. Children laughed as they learned how to oil chains and pump tires. Teenagers practiced changing brake pads. Jamal stood by the chalkboard, explaining how pistons worked to a group of eager boys. Eli walked slowly through the garage, soaking it in. The clanking of tools, the smell of grease, the sound of hope rebuilding. Every handprint on the wall told a story. Some were from boys who used to sleep under bridges. Some were from girls who had never touched a wrench before, but now dreamed of becoming engineers. Each one a mark of change. After everything, Eli had thought peace would come easily. It didn't. The truth about his mother weighed on him. Sometimes he woke up from dreams of fire, metal, and a woman's scream he couldn't remember, only feel. Other nights, he stayed up replaying every word Rushmore had said before being sentenced to 98 years without parole. I didn't kill your mother, Rushmore had claimed. She got in the way, that's not the same. But it was. It always would be. What Eli had learned over the last year was that healing wasn't a straight road. It bent. It paused. It demanded patience. But it moved. As long as he didn't stop walking. On the anniversary of the day he fixed Jamal's bike, Eli hosted a block celebration. Neighbors filled the streets. Former foster kids returned from college. The mayor, once silent during Rushmore's reign, now praised Eli's efforts on national news. Balloons flew, music played. But even in the middle of all the joy, Eli felt something missing. He stepped away from the noise, walking down the quiet alley behind the garage. There, he found Jamal standing by the mural of Angela Carter, Eli's mother, that had been painted just weeks ago. Jamal looked over. "You okay?" he asked. Eli nodded slowly. "Just thinking." Jamal didn't speak. He waited, as good friends do. Eli sighed. "I know what we've done matters, but I still feel like I never really got to know her. My own mother. She gave her life doing the right thing, and I didn't even know her favorite color." Jamal leaned against the wall. "Eli," he said, "you know how I used to sleep in my car, right?" Eli nodded. "One night I thought about ending everything. I had no job, no food, nothing. And then I saw you working in that garage, covered in oil, swearing at an old Chevy, but still smiling like you believed life could be better." Eli chuckled. "Sounds like me." Jamal smiled. "That night you gave me food. Let me sleep in the corner. Never asked why, just helped." He paused. "That's the kind of person your mother raised. Even if you don't remember her, she's in you." Eli stared at the mural, the woman with calm eyes and a bold smile, painted among clouds and wheels. "She'd be proud," Jamal said. The next day, something unexpected arrived at the garage. A letter, sealed in an old envelope with yellowed edges. No return address. Eli opened it. Inside was a folded piece of notebook paper and a photo. It showed a young Angela Carter standing beside a man, her brother, the letter said. His name was Lewis Carter. He had left the city shortly after Angela's death, fearing for his life. He'd gone underground, changed identities, lived quietly, but he'd seen Eli's name in the news and recognized the resemblance. I was too afraid to help when she died, the letter read. But I'm proud of the man her son became. Eli's eyes welled up. He never knew he had an uncle, a connection to his mother's past, still alive. The letter closed with a final sentence. Angela always said, "When the world breaks something, our job isn't to cry, it's to fix it, stronger than before." Eli read that line 3 times. It was the exact belief that had shaped his entire life. Now he knew where it came from. Weeks later, Eli met Lewis in a small cafe outside. The city. The man was older now, with grey in his beard, but his eyes. Eli saw the same eyes in the mirror. They talked for hours. Lewis shared stories of Angela, how she loved to sing off-key, how she always picked lilies over roses, how she dreamed of opening her own community clinic to serve the poor. She never wanted to be rich, Lewis said. She just wanted to matter. Eli nodded, eyes damp. She did. They exchanged phone numbers, hugs, plans to meet again. And as Eli walked back to the garage that night, he felt something he hadn't in years. Wholeness, not because everything was fixed, but because he finally understood where he came from. Angela's hands expanded over the next 6 months. A second location opened in Chicago, then another in Atlanta. Former foster kids became mentors, survivors of Rushmore's clinics, volunteered, college students interned, journalists visited to write features. The garage had become more than a repair shop. It was a movement, and still, every day, Eli arrived first, before sunrise. He swept the floors, organized the tools, and fixed the hard cases nobody else wanted. One morning, a little girl named Rena walked in, holding a mangled scooter. She looked about 7 with wide eyes and scabbed knees. "Is this place where things get fixed?" she asked. Eli smiled, kneeling to her level. "Yeah," he said. "It is." She handed him the scooter. "My dad threw it against the wall," she whispered. Eli gently took it from her hands. "Well," he said, "lucky for us, broken things don't scare me." Later that night, after Rena's scooter was good as new, Eli sat outside watching the stars. Jamal joined him, sipping coffee. "You ever think about what would have happened if we never met?" Jamal asked. Eli shrugged. "You'd probably still be sleeping in a car. I'd probably still be yelling at rusted bolts." Jamal laughed. "Probably." Then he turned serious. "But really, we were 2 broken kids. The world forgot us. But we didn't forget each other." Eli looked at him. "We didn't." There was a long pause. Then Jamal said, "So what now? We won. Rushmore's gone. The program's thriving." Eli leaned back. "We keep going. Why?" Eli smiled at the sky. "Because there's always another bike to fix, another kid to believe in, another story to rewrite." 1 year later, the Angela's Hands Foundation received the National Humanitarian Award. Eli gave a speech in front of thousands. He wore a simple suit, his hands still stained with grease, his heart full. "This isn't just about bikes," he said. "It's about reminding people that they are not disposable, that even the most broken life can be rebuilt, and that sometimes all it takes is one person, one act of kindness, to start everything." As he stepped off the stage, reporters rushed him. One asked, "Eli, what's the biggest lesson this journey has taught you?" He paused, then said that the smallest thing you do, something you may even forget, can become the moment that saves someone else's life. He thought of Jamal, of Angela, of the kids painting handprints on the wall. So never hold back your kindness. You never know what it might fix. That night, Back at the original garage, Eli turned off the lights and sat alone in the dark. He listened to the silence, then reached into his wallet and pulled out the oldest photo he had, the one of him and Jamal, taken years ago outside that first garage. 2 boys, 1 bike, 1 second chance, and the next morning, before the sun rose, Eli got up and went back to work. Because in a world that keeps breaking things, he had made it his mission to fix what mattered, the end.